All right, so hopefully everyone can hear me. There's the presentation screen. We're kicking off. This will be an interoperability demonstration of OID for VP and the Digital Credentials API. We have an hour and a half here together, and we have many attendees. We're going to take part as VIP speakers, as interop participants, and as other subject matter experts as we go through our conversation. What I was just going to call to your attention is a couple of recent articles. One published by Android in a blog post, which is highlighting these specifications in last Wednesday. When we announced this particular event, they were also announcing their plans to incorporate these specs into their platform. And there was also a recent publication by Amazon talking about their intent to consume both the mDocs or mobile driving licenses and the EID credentials under the architecture reference framework. So those are just a couple of recent examples of movement in the marketplace to adopt these credentials and capabilities. In this conversation, the OpenID Foundation is hosting this particular event, but we have been working in lockstep with many standards bodies, including those well-respected organizations you see on the screen here, both global, regional, and individual country standards bodies, in order to bring these specs and this interoperability effort to bear. So we continue to partner with them as we take our own specs to final, and they have specs that are going to be referencing our specs and vice versa. Two key steps that we have as we take the family of specs we talk about to the final yards over the next couple of months. One is to ensure the interoperability of specifications, our goal for today, but we also go through a rigorous process to do a mathematical security analysis of our protocols. We've gone through that twice on the OpenID for Verifiable Presentation and DC API specs, and we're doing a little bit more tidying up on the mathematical proof on that as we speak. The 5 objectives of these interoperability events, and we've had about 7 of them over the last couple of months, and this is the first kind of public demonstration of the interoperability. We have 5 key goals. One is to prove out the technical specs themselves. Second is to provide those results and insights to our standards body organization peers. Third is to conform the feedback into the OpenID Foundation's open source tests so that any implementer can take advantage and build against those tests and realize the results of the specifications. Fourth is to brief our government partners, who we'll hear from as we go through today's conversation, but brief many of our government partners, those who have already selected the specs and those who are running due diligence to consider them, to help them understand that these specifications are interoperable by default in the way that we're designing them. And last but not least is to support global scale adoption. I mentioned in the news a couple of the digital platforms that plan to adopt these, but both small and large organizations alike are picking up the specs and working with them. And we'll see a range of different types of implementers take part in this event, both from, again, the very smaller size organizations to quite large. And we greatly value all of them for taking part in this work. Very briefly, the work of the OpenID Foundation as a technical standards body does comply with antitrust policies, and we make this statement at the beginning of our meetings. And the same with any particular feedback or comments that come up today. Our IPR agreement does cover the scope of these conversations, so we will assume that everyone, for the purpose of comments you make, is acknowledging the IPR agreement that we have in place for the Foundation. For this particular demonstration and the hour and a half we have together, we're going to first go through some details on the scope and the approach of the interop that we've conducted. We will share with you some videos of pairwise demonstrations, and the people who worked on those implementations are going to do a live voiceover of the video, and we'll also be able to take questions to those implementers a little bit later. We'll then switch over to a NIST NCCOE project overview and a demonstration of that interoperability, which we seek to do live, but we have videos of that if we need it. And last, we'll ask some of our VIP observers for their comments on what they've seen today. We hope to leave a few minutes for Q&A, so if you have questions as we go through, please do feel free to put them into the chat or into the Q&A section, and we look to kind of either field them if we can as we go, but also pick them up and address as many as we can towards the end. So I'm going to quickly run through the people who are going to be speaking today. So first will be Joseph Heenan talking about identity, the OpenID for Verifiable Presentation and DC API standards. He is a standard specialist and certification director here at the OpenID Foundation, but he also has the hats of being a DCP co-chair, as well as off-lead CTO. Juliana Kathik, the principal program manager and identity standards architect at Microsoft, has been intimately involved in the NIST and CCOE architecture work, along with Oliver Terbu, editor of the DCP specs and technical director for standards in Europe for Matter. And we'll also have Christina Yasuda and Dr. Torsten Letterstedt, two of the other DCP workgroup co-chairs, who will also be joining in as we have the conversation. I'd also like to welcome our 4 VIP speakers, Ryan Galuzzo, Identity Program Lead for NIST ACD, Paolo De Rosa, CTO of the EU DI Wallet, Mr. Toshi Hamaguchi from the Digital Agency in Japan, and Ajay Gupta, Digital Transformation Officer from the California DMV. I know Paolo is literally on a plane and landing, so he may be a little bit slow to join in, but I know he intends to try and join us as soon as he can, and hopefully he will make it before the end of the meeting. And I think I know for sure that Ryan and Toshi had made it in. Hopefully we'll get the confirmation that Ajay Gupta has been able to jump into the line as well.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Great. Hi, Ajay. Okay, so the interop teams, you can see lots of beautiful logos of the many teams that we've had participating. We've had 7 verifiers and 8 wallets. You'll see the data in a moment, but a really good spectrum of participation from 3 different jurisdictions, particularly North America, Europe, and in Asia. So really great to have a mix of people proving out the specs, both on verifier and wallet sides, as well as from different regions, to help support the regional ecosystems. The OpenID Foundation itself has taken part as a participant, offering our open source test suite. And there's another large-scale brand entity that didn't have the approval to share their brand for today's event due to other marketing dependencies, but we hope to be able to refer to them in some of our future sessions. The participants you'll see on the right-hand side, speaking on behalf of their teams, will have a variety of different team leads, and time permitting, we'll try and get some key messages from several of those teams as we get later on in the agenda. So again, a big thanks to everyone who's taken part in this work to kind of provide some real rigor to the tests and this due process. So with that, I'm going to hand over to, I think, Joseph, you might be picking up this section on Christina's behalf, and then Torsten maybe chiming in.
Yep, thanks, Gail. So hopefully everyone is familiar with the kind of issue wallet verifier, the 3 or 4 party model. The specifications we've been working on recently is the OpenID for Verifiable Credential Issuance spec, which deals with getting the credential from the issuer to the wallet. And then we have the OpenID for Verifiable Presentation spec that deals with getting the credential from the wallet to the verifier. And then we have the High Assurance Interoperability Profile, or HYPE, which sits on top of both of those and defines a higher security layer and restricts some of the choices, so there's actually some kind of interoperability. So,
I just lost it again. I don't understand.
Okay, so while Gail tries to get the slides back, so the advantages of the OpenID specs is that they're credential format agnostic, so we're not strongly opinionated on which credential formats you should use in the issuance and verification spec. Obviously, a lot of people are using them for mDoc and /MDL mobile driving licenses, and also for SD-JWTs. Those are both required in the European ARF architecture reference framework as part of the EU DI wallet schemes. But the spec also has a credential format profile for W3C verifiable credentials, designed to be extensible to work with other credential formats if you want. It's designed to be easy but powerful, so the specs kind of build upon a OAuth 2 base layer, so that have elements that are familiar to all web developers and won't be unusual to people that have used OAuth 2 before. It's got plenty of powerful features there to actually meet the requirements you need for some of these ecosystems to scale them and build them securely. As Gail mentioned earlier, we've got verified security, and what we mean by that is we work with the University of Stuttgart. They have done mathematical analyses of many of the OpenID Foundation specifications. So in this case, they've already turned the Verifiable Credential Issuance spec and the Verifiable Presentation spec into a mathematical model. They also create a mathematical model of the threats we want to prevent in these specifications, the security threats we want to address. And then they do some very clever mathematics to see if the specification actually prevents that set of attacks or not. And usually they always find something, usually not serious, but usually important. And we try to do this before the specs go final so that we can take the input, and before the specs actually go to final, everybody starts putting them in production. We get any changes that are necessary applied. And we've already done that with these specs. We had an initial analysis that was done by Fabian, I think almost 2 years ago now. And they've recently been working to update that analysis for some of the later components like the Digital Credentials API. And we also like to be an approachable and open community. So anybody can join the Digital Credentials Protocol Working Group meetings as an observer. You're very welcome. The Zoom links are all public on the OpenID Foundation website and the DCP Working Group page. And if you want to actually contribute, the process is very simple. You just have to sign a contribution agreement to make sure that IPR is covered. There's no charge for that. You don't have to join OpenID Foundation as a member. Obviously, we would love it if you did. And it's a 2-page document. It's very straightforward to complete. You can do it online with DocuSign in minutes. And we try to be a very friendly community and welcoming to newcomers and people that don't understand the specs and so on. So as to the current status of the specification, so OpenID for Verifiable Presentations, which is the one we've been concentrating on, the interops today, that's got to its 3rd implementers draft. That was released just before Christmas, I believe. The draft we're actually testing in the interop today is draft 24, which is one revision after that 3rd implementers draft. It contains some important changes for MDL that we wanted to include in the interop, so we asked people to align around that version. And I should mention what an implementers draft is as well. Within the OpenID Foundation process, an implementers draft is a stage in a specs development where we cut a version and put it through a vote process and a foundation-wide review, and it looks into the IPR protections and gives people a place to kind of coalesce around. So, for example, when we're implementing conformance tests, we try to do that against an implementer's draft rather than one of the other spec versions, just so we have some consistency. And that spec is now up to draft 28. That's the most recent one, which was published just over a week ago now. Draft 28 has actually gone into the public review process for publishing this spec as final now. So again, that's a place where publish the spec. We're inviting anybody to comment on it and give us feedback on it. At the end of the 60-day public review period, there will be a 7-day voting period for OpenID Foundation members. If that vote passes, then the spec will be published as final. We expect at the end of June. The OpenID for Verifiable Credential Issuance spec, that's second implementer's draft now at the end of last year. We're planning to do some interop testing on that later this month. So if you have an implementation of that, please let us know. And then, as I mentioned, we have the High Assurance Interoperability Profile as well. That went to the first implementer's draft at the start of the year. And because that adds the interoperability and security layer, that's the spec we've been concentrating on testing in the interop. And a particular note that spec mandates the use of the Digital Credentials query language, which is the new query language in OpenID for Verifiable Presentation. I can mention a bit more on the next slide.
We'll talk about the scope. Oops, let's pause on. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. So the interoperability tests we've been doing today, and we're going to show later. So as I mentioned, they're based on draft 24 of the Verifiable Presentation spec. Today we've been focusing on the Digital Credentials API. So some of you may not have heard of that. So this is a new API that's going to be offered in browsers and operating systems. It provides an alternative to the way we've done OpenID for Verifiable Presentations in the past, which was using custom URL schemes. There is various security and user experience issues with custom URL schemes, which I'll not get into the details of, but this digital credentials API that we've worked on with the W3C on provides a great alternative user experience that we believe is going to be much easier for users, but it also has much better security properties, particularly for cross-device flows where we were struggling to secure them in the previous way we were doing OpenID for verifiable presentations. The credential formats we're testing today are mDoc-based credentials, including MDLs and also SD-JWTs. We're using the High Interoperability Profile, as I mentioned, so that just means we're using signed requests, we're using the X509 SAN-DNS client ID scheme, or now known as client ID prefixes in the latest version of the spec. We're testing encrypted responses. That provides important privacy benefits, although we've also been testing out unsigned and unencrypted tests as well. And as I mentioned, we're concentrating on the Duckle query language. So older versions of OpenID for verifiable presentations had 2 query languages in them. Or originally, going right back, we only had presentation exchange. We got a lot of feedback that there were some issues in presentation exchange. People weren't finding it that easy to implement. So we kind of went back to the drawing board, but built on top of the experience with presentation exchange to build a new query language called the Digital Credentials Query Language, which is very specific to OpenID for verifiable presentations. And we've had a lot of feedback since that this is actually working really well for developers and has significantly improved implementation easiness and made interoperability easier. So that's what we've been testing. We've been testing 4 different queries that you'll see in the demos later. So we've been testing for an MDL, just querying for the user's name, querying for a PID, so that's a European personal identity document, again querying for the user's name. Then we did some more complex queries that queried for a PID or an MDL or a photo ID, trying to prove that the user is age over 18 in mDoc format, and then we did a very similar test with a slightly different set of credentials, but in SD-JWTs format. And also as part of these interop tests, we've been using the OpenID conformance tests. So OpenID Foundation has a long history now of producing conformance tests for all our specifications. Again, it's something we try and do before they go to final because they give us a good way to improve the quality of the specs and get a lot of feedback from implementers about what does and doesn't work that we feedback to the working groups. The conformance tests we developed, they're all open source. We host them in the cloud. There's the link to the instructions there, so anybody can run them. When we formally launch a conformance program, you'll actually be able to submit to be certified, which will give you the rights to use the OpenID certified logo and to be listed on the website as a conformance implementation. And NIST also have some conformance testing tools that we've been using as well.
Great. I think that covers the scope for us, Joseph, and you can have a breath, at least for a few minutes. So we're now going to just share a few of the headlines. So before you show the videos, we'll tell you how it went. So for the 7 wallets and 8 verifiers, we went through those 4 different Duckle queries. That was a total of 224 potential pairs. And there were 35 of those that didn't have a result yet, so that particular configuration hadn't been run. And then for 36 of them, there was a result of no build yet, right? So we knew for sure that that particular implementation, it wasn't just that it didn't get run, it wasn't going to work anyway because it didn't have the technical features in place yet. So that meant a net of 153 pairs that were run. Out of those, not over 90% passed. And the remaining nearly 10% were viewed as having resolvable errors. And I think one of those was the versioning of the DC API because that had changed automatically in the Chrome browsers while we were in the midst of doing the testing, which was entertaining. Really a very, very strong result. And Juliana will talk a bit about the progression in the results over the last couple months when she jumps in. So this is where I white knuckle, try and transition from sharing the presentation to sharing the video. and bring that up for you all. Okay, and then try and put that on full screen. In fact, as big of a screen as I can do, so we'll try to do that. Here's our interop demo, and our first pair will be Animo. Well, Timo is going to speak for Animo, and let's see, we've got, I think, Lee, you're on the line to talk about the Android Credman wallet. Are you there, Lee?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. So we're just going to talk it through.
So I can speak to Credman. So Credman is Android's API, which supports all of these specifications. And we produce a sample wallet called CM Wallet, which is our reference implementation really for how other wallets can build a wallet on Android. It doesn't have the full feature set of a full, say, like European wallet, which maybe David can talk about afterwards. It's really just used as a showcase for how you can use these specifications on an Android device. And because folks are using this as a reference implementation or as a development sample, effectively, we want to make sure this is correct and it works against all the different verifier websites out there. So as we run through here, this is Amino's site. This is the first test case. I guess we could play the video at this point. When you click the button, you call the DC API. The DC API pops up this little selector.
Really fast. I'm going to try and play that part again. See if I can. There we go.
So you get this little selector drawn by Android. You'll see this pretty much in every demo. This is the wallets on the device offering up different credentials. So here's a credential offered up here. And I think we're going to pick this credential. We're going to do a biometric authentication. And then the result here has been returned back to Animo's website. And you can see it successfully returned. I think this one was an mDoc. Pretty much all of the, this here in the demo, you can see the JavaScript returned. This was an MDL driving license coming back with a family name and a given name. So all the demos are going to take this form across all the different various verifier sites, just asking for different types of credentials, mDocs and SD-JWTs, and they're going to be asking for different values, like different attributes, things like family name, and etc. And some, I think, the more advanced queries even do value matching, where they're saying things like only return credentials if the age happens to be over 18. So what the video is showing is just going through all those different queries and getting all the results back. And I guess you'll see this pretty consistently across everything. One real last quick note is you can try this yourself. You can download CM Wallet. I think we could probably share the links afterwards. You can run all these demos, pretty much all these demos, I think, live yourself on your own devices.
Anything to add, Timo?
I think you did a pretty good job.
All right, excellent. And despite the fact you were sleeping when we did the last round there, Lee, so thank you. All right, we're going to jump ahead to the next cross-device. We're going to go to Brenda Stuckerai, which is there. You ready? This one will also be Lee with Micah. I don't know who wants to jump in first on this one. You want to go first for this one, Misha? Or
yes, I can begin, but yeah. Bundesdruckerei also implements a verifier, and basically looks the same but different as Animo. So one big difference here is that we show the cross-device flow. So we maybe you stop the video shortly. So on the left side, we see the browser on a notebook or on a desktop, and where you are surfing on the verifier side. On the right side, you have the smartphone with your wallet. Maybe Lee can share some more details about how the two devices are linked together, because this is very critical, as Joseph already mentioned, so that the DC API brings some features that solve some issues regarding security and user experience we had before with the custom URI in the cross-device flow. So yeah, maybe Lee, you can go forward, please.
Yeah, sure. So so this demo is it's CM Wallet on the phone, so the same wallet like a reference app that we talked about before, and then here they're running the Verifier website on a laptop, and they make exactly the same DC API call on on the website running on the desktop as if the website was running on the phone. The website doesn't need to deal with the fact that it's running on, like the Verify website doesn't need to deal with the fact that it's running on a desktop or a phone. It just makes the same digital credentials API call with the same OpenID for VP request. And here what Chrome is deciding to do is perform a cross-device flow to a phone, and it shows a QR code. It is Chrome showing that QR code when Gail played the video before and the QR code was showing up. This is the operating system showing this. Or Chrome, depending on which operating system it's in. The phone then, the user scans this QR code with their normal phone camera, right, as you would normally would. They would click present identity inside the camera application, and then you'll see some UX pop up this is from Android. So Android, if you pause here, Gail, Android is now establishing a secure connection between the laptop and the phone, and it does this at the OS level, and it does this with a strong proof of co-presence. So, and the protocol we use here is called CTAP. It's from the FIDO Alliance, and it's the same standard protocol we use for presenting passkeys across devices. And once that secure tunnel is set up, we prove that there's a strong proof of co-presence, so you don't get like phishing across the world. We then send the same query into the wallets on the phone. And here you can see that this query has gone off to the wallets in exactly the same way as it did before. And crucially here, the wallets don't have to do anything different either, right? They get the inbound OpenID query the same as if it was locally. Android sort of handles all that for you. So the user sees the same selection screen. They'll pick one. They'll do the biometric authentication. They'll generate the OpenID VP response, and then that will get sent back over this tunnel, and it will go back to the calling Verify website, just transparently, all handled by the two operating systems. So you do the biometric, and then hopefully, the response is sent back over that pipe, straight back to the verifying website, and then this is the verifier showing the response. Yeah, and just to make it clear, I guess all queries, everything is supported over this flow, and all of the verifier websites you'll see today support this cross-device flow. They don't have to do anything special to support it. As long as they call a DC API, this flow will work for them.
We have multiple credential types the user can select on their wallets. Right, and I think this is the last permutation from this pair. Sharing the age over 18, and that's successful. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead to the next one, item 6. Here we go. Let's do this pair. Android verifier and Spruce wallet. So we might have Libby. Are you on with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Hi, Libby.
Good morning.
Free to chime in.
Sure. What we're demoing is Spruce is a company that publishes white label wallets in addition to our own. So what you're seeing is our Spruce wallet, Spruce Kit Showcase, available in the app stores if you want to play around.
That's on the right-hand side, right? Apologies for interjecting. I was just saying that would be on the right-hand side is the Spruce demo wallet, right? And then the left side is the digital credentials.dev, the Android verifier.
So you'll see we'll request the credentials. And just like Lee explained with the previous demos, we'll be taking advantage of DC API to share those credentials across. We pop up a extra UX just to make sure the user is aware of the information they're approving, and then it returns back to the verifier.
With the age over 18 going through. I'll just show one more with the Spruce wallet while we're at it.
And this is same device as opposed to cross device. So this is working with the anime verifier on a mobile device, choosing the full name test. Oh, no, another age over 18. Again, doing the verification approvals and returning back to the verifier with the requested information.
Okay, so for this one, well, thank you so much, Libby. I know that was relatively quick. So we'll come back to some other testimonials later on. Do we have Trung there as well from Panasonic on the verifier side? I know we had Trung this morning, but it might be getting quite late there in Asia. So we do have David Zinton. Do we have you on again?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Dave.
Want to take the lead on this one for us?
Sure, absolutely. Yes, you can let it play. So this is the Panasonic verifier. And we're now selecting the age over 18. Now we see the operating system prompt. And if you pause here, the user pressed OK in the Credman selector, which is it's drawn by the operating system. That invoked the wallet. The wallet shows a similar dialog, and the user can then see that they're sharing with this particular verifier. In this particular case, this wallet doesn't have the PKI to recognize this verifier, so it's informing the user that they should make sure they want to share their data with this particular verifier. So that all has to do with read authentication, which is a big topic in the EU. The user can then press share, and then in this particular demo, if you keep rolling, we blanked the screen. There was a biometric authentication like you saw in the other videos, and you can see the data is returned. That's all green check marks, and it's not a coincidence. The video looks a lot like the other videos. It's supposed to be the same user experience no matter what you're using. That's a great strength of the standard. Thank you.
Fantastic, thanks. And I think you're going to be up on deck again, David Zinton, along with Oliver Terbu on the next demo here. Matter verifier with the Open Wallet Foundation wallet, this time on device queries, both SD-JWT and mDocs.
Right. And as you can see, we can just let the video roll without interruption. It looks very similar. We select the request. It's a SD-JWT, Chrome, operating system, wallet, biometric, and back to the browser, and a very bright green.
And I think this is our large corporate partner, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and this time you see previous one we had our Funke verifier. This is our Funke wallet on the right side, and here we enter a PIN. Also because this is our prototype OIDF wallet for Sprint, where we implemented the German architecture concept, and we authenticate with a PIN to a remote secure element.
So that went really quick. Do you want me to go and play that again?
No, I think
we get the idea. So I think we'll pause there on the demonstrations. If we have time towards the end, we could play some more, but I think the audience, which has gone up to 124 people, probably gets the idea. And it'd be good to transition to the NIST NCCOE verifier conversation. So I'm going to stop sharing the video for the moment and go back to sharing the presentation. Okay. We don't have Bill. We have Ryan. All right, Ryan.
I think we actually do have Bill, but just not on video. I think he's hanging
not
out.
on the video. Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Bill. Let me get it full screen for you.
No worries.
Okay, over to you, Ryan.
Thank you. So as Gail indicated, my name is Ryan Galuzzo. I'm the Identity Program Lead for NIST Applied Cybersecurity Division. In that role, I help to coordinate a number of different projects that we have across our larger kind of information technology lab portfolio that relate to identity. One of those projects, in addition to the work we do on our digital identity guidelines, is the work we do within the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence on mobile driver's license and other verifiable digital credentials. So to give a quick background on the work we're trying to do there and make sure everyone understands the NCCOE, our National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence is essentially a place where we bring together collaborators from across government, industry, academia, standards bodies to help collaborate and bring together real-world implementations, or at least implementations that reflect the real world, in order to provide implementation guidance for organizations looking to deploy certain kinds of standards and technologies. So in this particular instance, we started to have some conversations, probably going back almost 2.5, 3 years ago, about the potential value of something like mobile driver's license to fill in the gaps that we currently have in identity proofing and to an extent authentication scenarios for online use cases. And arrived at the determination that this was extremely valuable. We've had several conversations with our colleagues at Treasury and our colleagues across government with, looking to try and take advantage of new and emerging technology to both improve the usability of identity proofing scenarios, as well as to limit and cut back on potential fraud within certain contexts. So when we decided to do the implementation of the mobile driver's license, we decided to focus and keep our scope tightly addressed to certain aspects. Number one, we wanted to focus on the online use case. We have a lot of colleagues from DHS who are focused very heavily on the in-person use case, particularly to support access to federal facilities, as well as access to things like airports and to get through TSA. So we wanted to focus on that kind of the scale of potential implementations for online use cases. And number two, we wanted to focus on specific sector use cases. So in this particular instance, we're looking at the idea of using your mobile driver's license to support customer identification program requirements for financial institutions. In the future, we'll do a build focused on government services such as login.gov or other state-run applications. And then we'll probably look at healthcare use cases after that. So basically what we've done is shape a focus on the online use case, which is what is directly relevant to the conversations today, with very sector-specific implementations that we can follow and deploy over time. Next slide. So within the NCCOE, we like to go ahead and pull in as many collaborators as we possibly can. In this particular instance, we wanted to go forward with a reflection or a build that reflects to the greatest degree possible, the full ecosystem that's going to be needed. I'm not going to read every single organization that's participating on this slide, but we have well over 21 participants at this point. We have Spruce ID, Idemia, and Google participating as our wallet providers. We've gone with a single verifier. That was partially an implementation decision to try and help represent a architecture that's easier for aligned parties to implement, so they don't have to have multiple different verifiers for multiple different wallets. In this particular case, we've used Matter. The other thing we wanted to do is make sure that we could tie this back into identity infrastructure, right? So the goal is not simply to say, hey, I can send you a credential and you can verify it, but also take the next step and understand, now that I've got that verified credential, how does it integrate with my directories? How does it integrate with my access policies? How can it actually be practically usable within the context of an actual online use case? And to achieve that, we've partnered with Microsoft, who is running our identity management infrastructure. And then to create a core set of requirements, we've brought in our financial institutions to help us build out what we call the bank of NCCOE. That includes JP Morgan Chase, US Bank, Wells Fargo, Synchrony Financial, PNC, Capital One, and others. We have 5 of the 10 largest banks in the United States participating right now. And they're providing the kind of core requirements, both from a usability perspective and from a security perspective and an implementation perspective. Finally, we've brought in as well, too, folks like Gail and Joseph, who have helped participate from a standards perspective to make sure that as we go through and do this build, we're not just collecting feedback in a bubble. We're actually providing that back into the standards development process to make sure that we've got a consistent set of feedback and feedback mechanisms to improve the standards and specifications over time. Next slide. So this is our architecture. You're going to see it in action Right now, we're focusing on mobile driver's license. That's primarily because it's the most common credential type offered by state DMVs, but there are several DMVs that offer a couple different versions. So in the future, we will be looking at other forms of credentials, such as W3C verifiable credentials, as well as different credential formats, potentially things like SD-JWT. Right now, we're focused on MDL, mDoc, but we will be expanding that in the future. In our implementation, we are looking at a number of different presentation protocols, but for the moment, we're really focused on OpenID for verifiable presentations using the Digital Credentials API. We think this is probably the most effective long-term implementation because it removes some of the challenges that exist with the kind of vanilla OpenID for VP that uses custom URLs. Adds a better user experience and incorporates additional security features that we don't get elsewhere. We're also using things like OpenID Connect and OAuth 2.0 on the back end to help with the provisioning of user accounts, providing attributes from the verifier to the identity and access management infrastructure, as well as providing kind of the core capabilities around API access and the like. Finally, the other thing we're looking at as well here too is using mobile driver's license and other verifiable digital credentials in conjunction with WebAuthn and passkeys. So again, one of the things we're looking at more broadly is how do these technologies all fit together in effective workflows, and the fact that you have to, at least with mobile driver's license, convey essentially PII or something similar to PII to do the binding back to the original account. Where preference is to lean towards things like mDoc and MDL, particularly for the account establishment and the identity proofing side, and rely a little bit more on anonymous credentials such as passkeys and WebAuthn for the ongoing authentication events. Next slide. You can go to, I guess, I don't know where we generated this QR code from, but hopefully this is accurate. If not, you can search for the NCCOE mobile driver's license on Google or on your browser of choice, and you'll be able to find it pretty easily. There we're publishing iterative resources, so I know most people don't really love waiting for us to publish, 900-page, implementation guides. And so what we're trying to do is be a bit more iterative and deliberate with each one of our releases. So far, we've put out the architecture, we put out our build criteria, which is essentially a set of requirements for all the different components that are participating. We also put together wireframes, which kind of allow our participating financial institutions to understand better what it looks like in practice and what the final build will hopefully reflect as far as integrating with your workflow. And then we've also put out a sample information page that you can use to help provide information to your end users so that they better understand what is an MDL or a verifiable digital credential, where can I get it, what's the process like to get it, does my state offer it, all that kinds of information we've kind of wrapped into a page that can be reused by relying parties to help convey better information to the end user. All of those are open for public comment, so if you do go scan this and you do go check it out, please feel free to send us either an email with comments or provide us with a GitHub comment that we can then use to help improve what we've provided for deliverables so far. I think from here I'm going to turn it over to Juliana and team.
And Oliver, exactly. And the QR code does work, Ryan. So I think you're good to go. It goes to the pages site that NCCOE has set up. Okay. So with that, I think we're going to hand over to you, Juliana and Oliver, and I think you might share from your screen, right? Or do you want me to go through these pages on my side?
You can go through your pages and then I'll let you know.
Okay, sounds great. And so that's Oliver first.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank the entire NCCOE team for this excellent project. It was a great experience to collaborate with financial institutions, understand the requirements, and help deploy this technology in the NCCOE environment. At Meta, we are pioneers and experts in digital credentials. We actively contribute to and help lead standards development across key SDOs, including the OpenID Foundation, ISO, IETF, and W3C. And the standards that we are demoing today are not only the ones that we help shape, but we also the ones that we use in our enterprise-grade products and platforms. to build secure and interoperable verifiers, issuers, and wallets for digital credentials. In the NCCOE, Microsoft is acting as an RP to our meta verifier, and we would handle the interaction with the wallet and verification of the credentials. The result would then be a nicely formatted JSON object that can be easily consumed by existing RPs, regardless of the credential format, which makes the integration with these technologies much faster. And that was my shameless plug. So I'm now going to hand over to Juliana.
Thanks, Oliver. I also want to thank Ryan and Bill specifically at NIST for leading this project. It's been an interesting navigation to try and determine from the high-level use case that was initially presented by NIST for the NCCOE to figure out how we could create a core architecture to support secure account provisioning for a financial institution based on the presentation of government-issued credentials, where in non-technical terms, there's no go-getter. There's no way for that bank to realistically consume that mDoc coming from a wallet that they don't have a relationship with. That was our primary challenge, was to try and create that architecture that enabled a technology neutral framework for the NCCOE project and ultimately for the industry that's based on standards, including the ones we're talking here today and the ones that NIST has presented. And that's where the architecture meets the participants in a very collaborative way within the context of the NCCOE project. And so super grateful for the opportunity to do that. And also to Oliver and his team at Matter, who've been able to be, what do I call it, our midnight friends. We work many hours to be able to support these interop events to enable the advancements of some of these standards. So from our perspective here, what we've got is a wallet independent architecture. There's no relationship directly with the wallet. We enable and are focused exclusively on standards-based protocols, profiles, and data sets. And it's up to the wallet providers to be able to implement to the standards, and we don't influence that in any way. And then we have our verifier with Matter integrated directly into the IAM platform. And what that allows us to do then is apply using Microsoft Entra, our shameless plug here, is to be able to create that orchestration layer, but on top of it, we enable the security that's required to enable claims extraction for a financial institution in a secure environment. And then as a result of the successful claims extraction, we enable an asynchronous account provisioning process to meet the KYC CIP requirements for the financial institution. And what this slide doesn't show, but Ryan talked to, is that post that, we then can issue, once the account is provisioned, we can issue a passkey bound to the credential and the account for recurring access. What that subsequently enables the bank to do is use that passkey for recurring access for their customers, but ultimately it can be a vehicle for step-up authentication, step-up verification, for higher assurance requirements for bank interactions. So next slide. So what we're looking at here and what we tested in the context of the NCCOE over multiple interop events, as Gail discussed, is 10 different wallets using Matter's verifier. It's completely browser independent, operating system independent. We've leveraged the Digital Credentials API, OpenID for VP version 24, 2 different credential types with SD-JWT and mDoc, 4 duckle queries to date, 4 different data sets to date, mDoc for MDL and PID, and we do it multi-threaded. So that means that we are emulating, actually we're using our Entra platform, so it's real world RP learnings on how this will scale, how it can get consumed by the relying party, in this case, the financial institution. So where did we start? So when we started the NCCUE project, testing for MDLs using the different credential formats as well as protocols and data sets was done face-to-face. And so we jumped in and worked, well, hard with participants in the NCCUE project to enable remote testing, where we didn't have to have pairwise testing face-to-face, that we were able to use our platform, build an environment that provided insights into the transactions that were occurring from the different wallets over the different protocols. So what you're seeing on the screen was our very first interop event held in the context of ISO MDL testing, a test event in Utrecht, the Netherlands. And what we tested there was the 3 different annexes in the MDL, ISO MDL 18013-7 R2 in the context of that test event. So there's Annex C, our OpenID for VP, and the custom URI model, which we heard about today earlier. The results were pretty low. The verifier response success at that point in time, you can see across each of the protocols, was fairly low. So what that drove us to do within the context of the project with the NCCUE was reach out to OpenID Foundation and work together to see if we could create a series of interop events that would allow all the wallets plus the verifier plus the standards development to start to work in lockstep to try and advance the standard to raise the response, the success rate. Our goal at that time was our relying parties, we know, need a higher success rate to be able to consume these credentials coming from a government issued credential from a wallet. So next slide. So fast forward to last week, I think, seems a long time ago now, but in only a 2-month period of time, those periodic interop tests have resulted in a much higher success rate. The advancement of the standard, particularly with respect to OpenID for VP, and the, I would say we've started to see some convergence around the specification and the wallet implementations to the verifier. So as we moved forward, not only did the effort get lower, the standard got more stabilized, the implementations we're starting to see now at a much higher success rate with less effort. So we're really starting to be able to see a maturing of these standards, but not only the standards, but the implementations associated with it across the parties. So that's pretty, from our perspective at Microsoft, this is really exciting because it means that we're starting to move into a time frame where we can start to look at how relying parties can consume this at scale. Slide. Okay, so I'm going to call on Oliver and any of my our wallet friends who are participating, and now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'll give you.
It's coming through.
I hope so.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so here we are looking at our insights into, this is in our Azure platform, the verifier integrated. So what we are seeing is the results from this morning's interop test. And I'll just give you a bird's eye view of what this looks like. What we see is we are able to discern the wallet, the company, the wallet, the protocol and profile that were used, and the data set, as well as the result associated with the transaction. What we've been using this for is to feed that information back to our wallets and back to the standards community so they can continue to iterate on and raise the success rate on presentation. So this morning we did a little mini test, and as you can see, we had wallets from Animo, I am going to butcher this name, so I'm not going to say it. The Inno wallet, Google, Matter, using the CM wallet from Google, Skitalis, and Skitalis. So we're seeing this mini this morning, pretty good success rates. We saw 100% success rate on Duckle for OpenID for VP encrypted, OpenID for VP signed. Now we're seeing a lower success rate here on the others, but I want to pause to say our success rates are not the overall success rate. So if we have a wallet present and fail, and then in the interop they make an adjustment, whatever the failure is associated with, whether it's a certificate, a data set format, it doesn't matter. They can have the opportunity to adjust and then pass. But what we don't do is we don't overwrite the failure. We include it. We want to see those so that we're keeping a record of all of the transactions. So when you look overall, we're seeing by protocol and profile, we're seeing some pretty high and very impressive success rates across these wallets. So I'm going to get Oliver. Are you able to do a transaction for us? And can you let me know what wallet it is?
Yeah, of course. Should I share my screen to show you the wallet transaction? I mean, I don't have to. Give me just a second. So this is the mobile version of the Microsoft RP. So I'm testing with like the CM wallet that Lee already mentioned earlier in the presentation. So I'm going to use OpenID for IP unsigned. Sorry. Okay, now it's back. My screen share just had some issues. So I'm going to use OpenID for IP, unsigned requests, and unencrypted payload in the response. So I'm going to use MDL name, which is ISO mDocs. And now I'll start the interaction. Very familiar, probably most of you that saw the videos before. Now I can select the wallet in the same fashion as previously shown in the other videos. Authenticating myself using biometrics, and then the response is sent to the meta verifier. Meta verifier verifies the response and then provides it back, extracts the claims and provides those back to Microsoft. And you can see that the data was in fact included. So this is an ID token. So that's not the credential, but this is just the way. So Microsoft, the IDP is basically providing the results back to the user. I think stop sharing the screen. Juliana, do you want to take over again?
Sure. Thanks, Oliver. So you can see that that transaction ran through that wallet successfully. I will share here underneath. Oliver, can you remind me which wallet that was?
Yes, this was a CM wallet, and the organization was Matter. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's share my screen. Are you able to see it?
Yeah, you can see it.
Screen. Let's see if we see the transaction come in.
So Matter will have the CM wallet. So we've added to the pile of Matter CM wallet transactions. What I can show you as well is this is we've attributed some fidelity to the basic logs that are underneath this. And so what I will show you directly is that transaction here. We see the session for the DC API. And we see that it was a CM wallet using OpenID for VP with Duckle for MPL name only. And we can see the verifier interactions with the wallet and multiple API calls. But we can see underneath this here now, this completed transaction and a successful claims extraction associated with that presentation, and a successful session ID, which is what the real-line party now can start to correlate to and use for the account provisioning process for KYC CIP.
Great.
So I'll stop sharing there. We don't need to do a billion of them. We've done them
Yeah,
so many already today.
absolutely.
But, so that's essentially how it works. It's starting to get quite refined, and we're pretty excited about now expanding this into the NCCOE with bank context.
That's the next big step. Absolutely. Great. Before we change topics, did you have any clarifications, Ryan Galuzzo, on the presentation from Juliana and Oliver?
No, I think the one thing to note is that the next step is going to be illustrating the full integration with our test application at the financial side, and I think we're in a good place.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, moving swiftly on. No more videos. There we go. All right, this is one of my favorite parts, is kind of getting some initial testimonials. So we have about 30 minutes left in the call, so I'm going to try and rattle through a few comments from several of you. So I have about a minute each. So I don't know if we have Nick Steele on. I'm not sure he's in as a presenter.
Oh, I'm here.
You are there, Nick. You got a minute? Any feedback on your learnings and wishes for the community?
No, I mean, we came in, I think, Gail, we talked about in mid-April at a
April 8th or 9th, yeah.
Yeah, and we were able to get up and running in about a week and a half, thanks to, in no small part to the community around this project, and then also the documentation has been really helpful, really transparent. It was very easy for us to follow what the steps were in order to start providing presentations and acting as a wallet. And while we had a little bit of previous work in the space as a prototype, we were able to very quickly get up and running. So my learnings was, well, it's pretty easy. My wish is that this transparency and openness continues with the community, and that it continues to we continue that easy process, especially as I think as solutions mature, they tend to get more complex. So making sure that we continue to grow the documentation and the resources out there for helping others adopt is something I hope will continue. But it was great. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Nick. I'm going to move swiftly on to Timo, speaking for the Animo team.
Yeah, so I think, we also really enjoyed this interop testing. I think it was very well organized, which helped. There were very clear queries we need to run and the specifications. And I think that also really helped here is that testing with the High Assurance Interoperability Profile helps, because it's very clear on what you need to do, because the OpenID VP spec is still it supports a lot of use cases. This way we narrowed it down to a specific set of requirements. And I think the DOCL made it also a lot easier. We've done a lot of previous interop testing. It was the first one where we used DOCL, and so that removed a lot of the main pain points in the interop testing. I think the main issues we encountered now were related to X509 certificates. So that makes me very optimistic about the OpenID VP spec moving to version 1.0 and having a stable foundation to build on that we can all use.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Timo. Moving on to Nisha for Mr. Correct.
Yeah, thanks to the organization and to all participants. It was really fun to be a part of this and to see how fast we move forward from week to week. We were closing gaps one after the other. We are very familiar with the OpenID stack, also actively contributing to the specs. What was quite new was the DC API, but it was really straightforward to implement this. Was really cool experience. I personally really appreciate that the editors and contributors of the OpenID specs are not afraid to evaluate some options and maybe remove also some options in favor of simplicity and to drive forward the interoperability. I'm really looking forward and hope that also other platforms will support the DC API and that we will see some more applications in the future that are secure, user-friendly, and privacy preserving.
Great. Thank you so much, Misha. Moving over to Lee.
Hey folks. I mean, it's been really, really good. I think like the spec has matured massively over the last 12 months, and we're now seeing it in these interop results. My job really is to make sure that we have a spec that works on like our Android platform on the web platform globally, and in a way that we can reduce fragmentation, as in we can just say this is how you request like digital identity documents, on the web. And so I feel I have high confidence now that we have a spec that can do this. I think it's shown in the results. It's shown in the fact that we have multiple implementations that have independently gone and read the specs, built independent implementations that they actually all come together and interop together without lots of background work trying to tweak each other's implementations so they actually do work, which is cheating a little bit. And I think these are honest results in that respect. And then I think I think part of the testament to this is DACL really. I think that change in the spec it made it significantly easier to implement, and we've implemented that now in multiple wallets, and we've partnered with multiple wallets to implement it too, and multiple verifiers, and everyone has been able to do it successfully. And I would say that wasn't quite true with PE. And so I think these results are testament to all the work that we've seen over the last 12 months. I think it's in a really exciting position at this moment in time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lee. Over to David.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm representing the Multipass project hosted at the Open Wallet Foundation. And we've been doing credentials, specifically ISO mDoc, for a long time. We started with OpenID for VP last year, implemented the older version, PE and UI schemes, and extremely excited about the new version running on top of DC API and with DACL. And I want to thank the foundation for organizing these interop events. They've been great, been very productive, very well orchestrated, and also all the organizations participating have been very helpful in like spreading their knowledge and help everybody interpret the spec. And finally, the OpenID for VP editors and the DCP working group been very welcome with suggestions and feedback. And basically, the standard is really good. I have a lot of confidence in it, and I think the results speak for themselves. As for wishes, really want to see this work on more browsers, more mobile platforms. A lot of us have our solutions running on more than just one platform. It would be great to see like really global interoperability. Thank you.
Great, thank you, David. Back to Oliver. Anything else to add, Oliver?
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and we are seeing really, really good results. Specifically, so DC API plus OpenID for VP plus DACL queries are relatively straightforward and made it really, really easy to implement the verify logic. And especially having a shared query language across ISO MDLs and SD-JWTs made it really easy to support additional credential formats with minimal code duplication. And so we have first-hand experience with this because we didn't have support for SD-JWT VCs in our pre-prod environment, but really, using that technology stack made it quite easy for us to actually add support for SD-JWTs in minimum time. Looking forward to more improvements on the DC API things. I mean, specifically on the feature set, more transports for CTAP hybrid, like NFC, UWB, and so on. Things that were generally hard at the interop event is, like, as always, less about the protocol and the profile layer. So it's more about things like certificate management. So how would you trust the issuer certificate of a credential? You have to, exchange those certificates out of band, which is usually an error-prone process. Perhaps in the future we could use a digital trust service to improve that process a little bit.
Thank you, Oliver. I think we don't have a representative from the Panasonic team on, but I'm just going to quick check. We had them this morning and had some comments we can recap later. But moving swiftly then on to Vangelis. I think you're speaking for Skatelis. We're going to have Vangelis on. I don't know if we have Marina on. I don't see Marina. Okay, so maybe they had a conflict or there's an issue connecting. So let's move on to Libby. I think you're still there, Libby.
Yep. Hi. So for Spruce ID, I think one of the interop learnings was once we put our mind to it, we're a small team. And so focusing in through our participation with the NCCOE project and saying, okay, yes, we're going to start to implement these specifications. It was really fast and easy once we devoted time to it. And just a great community to help us work through any issues, although we didn't really encounter any major blockers. And things that we're definitely looking forward to is getting more of that platform stability and availability, so it's a consistent implementation for the wallet itself. But I know that's coming, and it's been a great to participate in the foundation work on this one.
Great, wonderful, thank you, Libby. We're going to have a speaker for our anonymous corporate. They are anonymous. I have any additional comments, Juliana, from your side?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, looking at it from a higher level, the advancements that have been made over the last few months have been significant, and the stabilization we're starting to see bodes well for adoption moving forward. But adoption in the context of alignment with the regulation for the IDAS and the ARF, but also under the Real ID Act in the US. But in addition to that, we have sectoral regulatory requirements for our relying parties. So to be able to blend the two, while at the same time enabling our relying party to essentially establish an awareness of state between their processes and a wallet that they have no relationship with, is starting to bring us closer to the opportunity for some broad scale global interoperability that will support relying party adoption, which is really our goal.
Great, and I'm going to appreciate that, Juliana. I'm going to skip you, Joseph, because I think you might have a few parting comments at the end, and I want to make sure we have time for our VIP speakers to share their thoughts as I get that back up on the screen here. Moving swiftly along. Back. There we go. We should have that coming back up on the screen here. So we'll move on to our VIP observer comments. So I know we have Ryan and Ajay and Mr. Soshi. I don't think we have Paolo on the line at the moment. We've heard from Ryan already, so why don't I go over to Ajay? Maybe you'd like to share a few words on what you've observed today. Are you with us still, Ajay?
I am. Can you all see me and hear me? There you go.
Yes, we see you now. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Well, good afternoon, I believe, everyone. This is morning for us, and especially early morning for me, personally speaking. But I really appreciate me getting invited to observe and get exposure to some of the things that is being done, both standards-wise and what the industry players are looking at in terms of adoption. Always good to hear. As you know, here at California DMV, we learn quickly and make changes, and sometimes it costs us a lot, apparently, as I put in my notes in the chat. But really appreciated what I saw. It was a little fast for me to kind of absorb some of the things, but appreciated the opportunity to be included. Just some of the questions that come to my mind that are based on real life challenges beyond like moving target on standards, which actually could get frustrating at times, especially because we are putting together things that are getting implemented. So I'm going to be closely following the final implementation of it. So our next investment is, going to stick. But But in terms of some of the other challenges, obviously wallet selection was one of the challenges that industries tried to address. One of the things that kind of leave it open for the group to think about is the challenges around the reliability of the whole biometrics binding. That's questionable depending on the operating system, etc. And the hackathons that we did in October and November, almost all industry vendors started to have their own identity verification or proofing along with the credential presentation, which would make this an expensive endeavor, as you can imagine. Obviously good for the identity proofing providers, but that takes away the trust from the digital credential presentation side. So it'll be interesting to see what the standards providers and the industry team is thinking on what is the practical way to reduce or remove that those redundant checks, which will make some of the implementations impossible in many cases because of the cost, but in other cases just very frictiony, and it'll have years of adoption cycle. So that's something that I'm hoping to see in the future as well from it, because I didn't see that in any of the. Obviously, you have a specific focus on the interop, but that's one of the real life challenges that we are really facing. And I do believe as we get more and more relying parties, we as in California DMV, we're going to see that coming quite often. So we are coming up with our own, let's call it niche solutions, once again at the cost of things moving and changing and the industry moving to another direction while we are moving in a direction that is really the need of the day. So just wanted to call that out, but outside that, really appreciate the work from the NIST COE as well. We've been participating somewhat passively, but observing quite a bit on what NIST is coming up with. Still working in parallel with the industry partners like financial industries, healthcare, and retail sector, etc. So, and also observing all of you all, right, from folks from EU team, Torsten's team. So appreciate all the feedback that I continue to get from everybody. With that, Gail, back to you.
Thank you, Ajay, and we'll be sharing on the OpenID Foundation website the summaries and the full videos, so you can see some of the other examples and take your time looking through them if you would like. Did I see a hand up? Okay, so okay. I'm going to pass over to Ryan Galuzzo for any comments from you, Ryan, as you've observed everything today.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to participate today. We've been along for the majority of the ride on this one, so there's very few things that I would say are surprising. Couple things that I'd like to see us take on in the future. One, to echo Ajay's comment, particularly around the concerns over things like how well the wallet does the holder authentication or holder binding or whatever phrase you want to claim. We've been having a lot of conversations within the NCCOE about how to address that. Theoretically, it could be something that could be addressed through providing additional authentication context in the presentation protocols. So that's something we're interested in. It's obviously very early to have that kind of a conversation, but maybe in version 36, we'll potentially be able to test some of that and be able to provide a little bit more information to the relying parties so that they don't have to revert to a secondary remote biometric comparison, which is to steal a phrase from Lee, an anti-pattern we'd like to make sure it doesn't kind of persist. The other thing I think would be very helpful is, our focus continues to be on how do we make sure that, that we just don't get the credential, but how do we actually integrate it with a broader set of capabilities within the relying party infrastructure and architecture. So on our side, really making sure that we can demonstrate how that all plays together in a full and complete workflow. And then finally, I think we'd really like to see some work done, in the not too distant future, as some of the things stabilize around zero knowledge proofs, to demonstrate some interoperability and the capacity to leverage zero knowledge proofs, particularly for age assurance use cases.
Great. Thank you so much for the Ryan. And just before I pass over to Mr. Soshi, I'll remind everyone that the Q&A is open. I know Torsten and Joseph and others have been busy answering questions as they come in. So given our tight time frame, please do pop questions into the Q&A. And I think, Mr. Soshi, you're going to present a couple of pages. Is that right? Okay. Over to you.
So may I still have 5 minutes?
You still have 5 minutes?
Okay. I make sure. Hi everyone. My name is Soshi Hamaguchi from Digital Agency Japan, and I'm very honored, excited to be here as an invited observer this time. And this is my actually first time joining OIDF event. You must have quickly noticed because I'm the only one who wears tie and suit. As of today's demonstration, a lot of OIDF, especially its intensive discussion and rapid development of the specification, are extremely important for upcoming digital identity work ecosystem in Japan globally. And now I'm allowed, I'd like to briefly share our POC project in Japan to highlight how OIDF is contributing to us and will contribute more.
Yeah. While you bring that up, I'll mention that the digital agency was kind enough to help fund the test development, which Joseph was talking about earlier. So our thanks to the Japanese government for that support. Tremendous. Knocking on tables.
So actually, we have demonstrated the digitalization of the certificate enrollment students using Japanese My Number card at Osaka Station about a month ago. The demo shows how we can move student enrollment verification from paper to a secure digital format. Let me introduce some key players, and some of you may be familiar with the face display, especially Ujie-san on the screen.
No, I was just asking whether he was involved, and then you
He's deeply involved in the project. These stakeholders reflect a broad partnership combining academic innovations and industry applications and government support to ensure the project success and alignment with international certificates such as OIDF. Next, demonstration project scope and future vision. This slide outlines our scope of the demonstration and our vision for the future. Our POC focuses on the certificate of enrollment with university students, aiming to provide digital service for students that traditionally require paper proof. In this demonstration, a student enrollment status is issued as a verifiable credential and used to obtain student discount ticket online. The current product is very limited. It involves only one university and then one type of certificate, which is enrollment certificate, and one transportation provider, JR West, Japan Railway West. But it's designed with extension in mind. We are testing the core technology now with limited environment, but with eye to scaling up to many university, more credential, more university, more transportation system, and upcoming new use case in education and beyond. And let me explain the use case scenario. Let's walk through the demonstration use case from the student perspective. Imagine first year Osaka University students planning on a trip to the overseas. He discovers there's a discounted train ticket for students to get to the airport. Normally, he would have to show a paper document, paper enrollment certificate, or student ID to prove he is a student to get discount ticket. But in this demo, he uses his My Number card and the new digital credential system. The student access the railway online ticket portal with which asks for proof of enrollment. Using web browser, he is redirected to verify his identity and enrollment status. He authenticates through his university and obtains a digital credential of enrollment issued by NII into his mobile wallet. This step confirms, yes, he is a student from the University of Osaka University. Now verified as a student, he proceeded to purchase the discount ticket online. He proved his identity by digital authentication app provided by the digital agency and his My Number card. After buying the ticket, he registered his facial image through the app, which will be used for facial recognition app later. And upon the day of the travel, thanks to prior face registration, he can walk through the ticket gate without pausing to scan any paper documents, which is especially convenient given he has heavy luggage because he travels overseas. And this scenario demonstrates the benefit of combining digital student credential and secure authentication in modern ticket technology. So we have prepared two slides explaining about our My Number card and its expanding use cases, but due to the time constraint, then we skip it. Maybe you can read it later if you are interested. And we've also prepared a video demonstration, but it lasts like 6 minutes, so maybe you can play later on. I will distribute this presentation material later.
Great.
And if you have any questions, please contact me or Fujie-san directly.
Great, great. Happy to put the contact information in the chat later if you'd like, but we also said we'll publish the documents when they're approved on the OpenID Foundation website as well.
And this is the last slide about system architecture. The student authenticates through University IDP. NII issues enrollment DC available credential to student wallets. The student initiates ticket purchase at JR West online platform. They have to authenticate with digital authentication app to the online ticket platform. Then they have to present the enrollment credential to JR West to prove they are a student. JR West verify it and issue digital ticket, discounted ticket to the students. And all of this are implemented and done through the standard interface and protocol such as OIDC, SAML, and OID for criminal credential.
I think we better pause.
Yeah.
And circulate later.
Each part can be swapped and extended in the future. And the OpenID Foundation deliverables helps ensure we align with global specification, and meaning our approach can interoperate with other systems globally. In conclusion, this demonstration shows that combining the ubiquity of the My Number card system, robust authentication, and open digital identity standards, we can greatly streamline identity verification for students. We successfully proved the concept with enrollment certificate and train ticket. We are now looking to scale it many more scenarios. Thank you for your attention.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that very speedy review of the use case. And again, thanks again for the generous funding of the test, which everyone is able to take advantage of. Thanks to your directed contribution to the OpenID Foundation and the OpenID Foundation Japan. So thank you again, Mr. Hamaguchi-san. In the last moment that we have here, I was just going to draw to your attention our reference information, so the QR codes for the DCP work group, and to access the tests for any of you that may be implementers. And in our last moment, I thought I'd see if Torsten, you'd like to share a few words of your own comments after observing everything today in the interoperability demonstration. Any comments for the group?
You caught me by surprise.
See, I thought I had you. All right, I will give a few comments here, which is that clearly you heard from Joseph earlier the plan for the specs to move to final in the next couple of months. We'll continue to work very closely with our liaison partners at the W3C, ISO, FIDO, and others, and we will continue to support the ecosystems that have been making requirements of us. So in the US, EU, California, and Japan, among others, including Switzerland and NOSIP that have selected the standards. as well as other use cases. We heard about the Open a Bank Account use case with the NIST and CCOE and the transit use case from Mr. Soshi, but there are certainly other use cases in the Europe and beyond that are moving quickly as well. So we look forward to supporting those ecosystems as they engage. This is clearly an important milestone in a long journey, and thank you for all being a part of it today. And then Les Torsten, you now are ready to say anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, oh.
You don't need it.
Yeah, you actually bought me some time, so I was able to think about what I'm gonna say. So first of all, thank you very much for all the parties involved in the interop testing. That helped us a lot as a working group to validate the specification and the current feature set, which is of utmost importance as we are heading towards final specification. I would also like to mention there is still a lot of work to be done. So today also in the call, we had a lot of features that we would like to incorporate in the specifications because there is a need and there is a desire to have those functions. But we can't do that right now because we lack the implementation experience and we also need to design that stuff. So if you want to get involved and if you want to collaborate with us, please join the working group and help us even with the further evolution of the specification after the final specifications of the 1.0 version. Thank you very much.
Great. All right. Thank you all. That ends our presentation for today. Thank you again, and feel free to get in touch with any other questions you might have. Bye.